So we're passing through a dark phase now, but this dark phase will usher in at a point in the future that I cannot determine only the first prospect for actual peace we've ever had. And then the final cause of optimism, again, is, when you look at how this is balancing out the power between Israel and Iran, clearly the immediate events in the Arab world, and particularly the overthrow of Mubarak, is a huge boon for the Iranians. Are they going to be able to enjoy it or not? It depends on what happens inside of Iran. If the Iranian people are able to overthrow the regime, then obviously that opens up a whole new world of possibilities, and that should be something that we should be actively supporting and calling for. And the same is true, of course, in Syria. So I think that those are the basic lessons. Do I have another 2 minutes, or do you want me to quit it right now? Okay, so I have 2 more points, because I'm not paying attention to how long I'm talking, and I'm on a strict schedule that I have no idea how I'm doing about. But I'm doing okay, okay. So just a couple more secondary points that I do want to make before I open it up to questions, which is, one of the things that we're seeing with the Arab revolt is the undoing of certain common wisdoms that we've had about the Middle East that have been informing policymakers in the West and Europe and the United States for a couple of generations. So, the first one is that it makes sense to build an alliance structure in the Middle East on appeasing tyrannies, Arab tyrannies, at Israel's expense, right? Because what the Americans have said and what the Europeans have said is, we need to be nice to the Saudis because we need their oil, and the only way to do that is by attacking Israel, is by putting the screws on Israel, is by saying to Israel that Israel is at fault with the Palestinians and taking their side in the political war against Israel to greater or lesser degree, but that has been the rationale. So they did that, and it hasn't helped them one bit, right? Because all today, of Obama's bowing down before the Muslim Brotherhood and attacking Israel and speaking to the Muslim Brotherhood in Cairo at the Muslim Brotherhood University there at Al-Azhar, none of that has helped him one bit, because the crowds in Cairo are calling them to America. They're not sympathetically inclined towards Obama because he's been so anti-Israel they couldn't care less. And this hasn't helped them. Now, the question, of course, is, will this make people any less likely to cling to this belief that the way that they should move forward, Western powers should move forward in their relationship to the new emerging governments in the Middle East is by harming Israel, by attacking Israel, by saying that Israel has to give up Judea and Samaria and Jerusalem, and then if we, God forbid, give them up, then move to the next thing, the Galilee and the Negev, and how can we enforce our laws there against Arabs who just want their own homeland? Are they going to change their mind now that they see the reality of the real problem with stability in the Arab world literally crashing down on their heads? And the answer is no, because that whole view that they have to put the screws to Israel in order to appease the Arabs is based on much more than an incorrect analysis of the situation by otherwise bright policymakers. It's based in most cases on a basic foundational hostility towards Israel and on ideology that moves them in the direction that would put them against and stand them against Israel. So when we have seen, as we have seen with Obama now helping Al-Qaeda in Libya against Gaddafi, that when you are guided by ideology, facts don't matter. That you will continue to pursue your ideological beliefs regardless of what reality tells you, regardless of how dangerous it is, regardless of what the facts on the grounds are. And so, the fact that the whole idea that the Palestinian conflict with Israel is the central, most important aspect of the Middle East has been destroyed by events, completely overtaken by events, is completely unimportant to the people who are purveying this view, because they really don't care. This is why Defense Secretary Robert Gates was able to come to Israel last week and say, now is the time for Israel to move boldly forward or backwards out of Judea and Samaria and Jerusalem and make a bold move towards peace, because that's really going to stem the tide of all of these revolutions in the Arab world. He said it. I mean, I'm not making this up. And then the other question was, will this instability help us because they'll be distracted like they are in Iraq, or make it more difficult? So I think, unfortunately, though, what we've seen with the Qassams that Alon was talking about, that reached all the way, they thought that it was Gadara, they thought that it was reaching Rishon LeZion, they certainly have Tel Aviv in their range. That and the massacre of the Fogel family, Shemi Kol Dama, and maybe Tzal can also revenge their deaths. But all of the uptick that we've seen in terror bombing in Jerusalem, I think it's very much a part of what we're seeing in the Arab world, that you're going to have more of that as you have more regimes, Syria, Hezbollah in Lebanon and Iran, that want to deflect people's attention away from what's happening in their cities. You're going to see them pushing for more attacks against Israel, because they have they always want the story to be about Israel, because when the story is about them, people understand how heinous they are, how evil they are, how terrible they are. I mean, just you almost never hear just about the torture that goes on in Syrian jails. You almost never hear about what they do to young men in Syria, in terms of psychologically torturing them, physically torturing anybody who has an independent thought, and turn them into the worst malformed human beings. Nobody ever talks about these. These are evil regimes. And you see, I mean, I've gotten these emails to me in my inbox for the past week from Syrian dissidents that nobody listens to in normal times. And so, from Assad's perspective, the less said about who he is and the devil that he is, the better. And so he has an inherent interest of keeping the attention on Israel. And if it's through terrorism, so be it. Now, when the Fogel family was massacred in Itamar, people who weren't, even good people, weren't paying attention to what was happening in Syria. They were paying attention, even if to condemn the terrorism, they weren't thinking about Syria. They were thinking about what happened to the Fogel family. And for him, it doesn't matter if the story makes him look good or bad. The fact of the matter is that it keeps attention away from what he's doing to his own people. So the more stress people like Assad, like people like Hassan Nasrallah, people like Ahmadinejad feel at the hands of their own people, the likelihood that they are going to be pushing Hamas, pushing Fatah, pushing Islamic Jihad, pushing all the Palestinians to kill Jews is going to rise. So, unfortunately, as long as these regimes are able to hold on to power, the more that they are stressed, the more they're going to try to change the subject by killing us. And we have to be on our guard. And in this case, the last thing that I want to say is, what does Israel have to do in the face of all of this?